Alright, today we're going to take you through a presentation and video sequence to show you how to do a remodel of a living room and dining room combo area. So we're going to take this room, which you see here with carpet and outlets and everything on the wall. It's been cleared out, but we're going to change it from this into this. And we'll take you through a little step-by-step process and what we did to complete this project, which took about 2 weeks, I think, altogether. So here we go. Step 1. Emptying the room is complete. Mostly. The good news is you don't have to sweep the carpet. You just roll it up. Just lift one side off the tacks and roll it up just like so. When you do, you'll need multiple people to try to lift it up and get it out of the house. There's a problem area where you might get something stuck and you just have to pull really hard to get off the tack strips. You get the carpet up, you'll have the pad left, and it's just usually glued down. There's not much to this at all. You just pull the old pad up and then throw it outside in the garbage. I actually had my children kind of cut it up into pieces, so we slowly got rid of it in the normal trash over the period of a couple weeks. But that's it. It's just glued down. Just use a scraper to be able to get it up if you have to, but it shouldn't take a whole lot of effort. Okay, underneath the pad there's a bunch of glue, and you have to kind of scrape the glue out because you need an even floor before you put the vapor water barrier down and the laminate floor on top of it. So I just use a crowbar with a scraper on the end of it to scrape it out. You can use just about anything with a flat blade. So next you got to take the tack strips out, and you have to be careful a little bit because you don't want the floor to get damaged too much when you take these tack strips out. So I just carefully put one of these little crowbars or a wedge underneath it and then tap underneath and just get it loose enough to where you can pop it up and see we don't have the floor damaged underneath, just the holes. If you have to, you can come in with some concrete or mortar and smooth those out if you have to, but normally it shouldn't be a problem. Now that everything was up off the floor, we're skipping ahead here on the picture a little bit, but we did put wainscoting up on the walls, and to do that, you basically just need to measure out the walls, make sure you've got enough wood to do it. We didn't put paneling up underneath. We just added some wood plank directly to the drywall. And to do that, we used some 1x3 wood plank. We did make sure that it was pre-primed, and you got to be selective with the ones that you get to, because so many of these at the Home Depots or the other suppliers of wood products, they're warped. Sometimes they sit outside, they get water in them, and they get warped, and when you try to put them on the wall, you find out that you got huge gaps because the wood's all warped. So try to select the best pieces you can from the inventory that they've got. It'll save you a lot of grief later. We glued them and nailed them to the drywall, measured out all the different interspacing so that they were equidistant. In the corners, we mated two together and then glued in some wood filler and some caulk to make sure the corners were nice and smooth. And yeah, then we got the wainscoting up. Okay, so now that we've got all the wood trim up, we need to fill in all these gaps and try to make it nice and smooth before we actually paint. And to do that, we're going to use wood filler. Now this is just very cheap Ace wood filler, but once it's in there and you get it smoothed down and sanded, it should just look like one contiguous piece of wood that you can then sand and paint like normal. So this is interesting. They actually put the label on upside down at Ace, but we'll open it up, apply it with a little scraper, smooth it out with gloved fingers, and we should be ready to paint. So I was just going to paint after I did the wood filler, but I started doing caulk on just the corners, and I just really liked how it came out. So we're going to go ahead and caulk everything because it just makes it look a lot cleaner. So that's what we're doing now. For that, we're just using good old paintable caulk. Everyone must be paintable. Don't use kitchen and bath liquid stuff because you can't paint it. It just beads up and it'll look stupid. So paintable caulk is the cheapest stuff out there. Once the wainscoting was up, it was time to give the upper part a dash of paint. I never paint with floors in. I always paint before the floor goes in. It saves you a lot of cleanup, and if you get a drip of paint on the concrete floor, who cares? I also had some
extra labor for this, so while they were available, I put them to work painting while I was doing things like pre-cutting pieces of wood for the floor and getting some other materials together. A tip: painter's tape. You can see it there on the left-hand side of this picture. It's above the wainscoting between the barrier of the dark and the white paint. I put painter's tape down, that way none of the darker paint went onto the top wood of the wainscoting. It makes life a lot easier.
Okay, we're going to remove the painter's tape. I actually do a trick where I reuse the other side of the tape after one side's dry, just to save on painter's tape, because I'm cheap that way. So here we go. Peel it off. Nice clean line. Look at that. Yep. Okay, just as a little tip, you don't want to wait until the paint completely dries, because you have a chance of taking off big globs of paint. So as it's close to being dry, you peel off your tape and you get a nice clean line. Oop, little globs here and there, but otherwise a nice clean line. Makes it look nice and clean. And then, once you take your tape off, we'll be on to the next step, the floor.
Okay, well, you need to make sure the floor is nice and clean. So thoroughly sweep and make sure there's no big particles or anything that can cause the floor not to lay perfectly flat on top of the moisture barrier. We're going to put the moisture barrier on first, and for this we use the Roberts moisture barrier, but you can use different brands, but this is the one we choose to use. Once you get it down, you kind of tape all the seams together and make sure there's no big gaps in between them. It is very critical that it is smooth, so you will have to smooth it out as you lay it down to make sure that there's no lumps on it, because those lumps can bunch up underneath the floor that you're putting down and can cause it not to have a complete contact with the ground. So put down the moisture barrier, make sure it's flat, and yeah, then we'll put the vinyl floor on top of it. If you've ever done a floor of this or any other kind, you have to leave an expansion gap. We left just a little over a 1/4 inch around the entirety of the floor to allow for the floor to expand when it gets into the summertime months. Everybody remembers their elementary physics, things expand when they get warm. The last thing you want is for this floor to expand and then kind of ridge itself up at the seams because it's run up against the wall. So a 1/4 inch around the entirety of the floor should be enough. Just make sure that you get trim that covers up that expansion gap. That's what makes it look nice and clean when you're done. We just used 2 pieces of trim that we cut off the edges of the vinyl board to create those expansion gaps. You can see them lined up against the wainscoting there in the picture. We smoothed the floor as we went. It's really hard to take that moisture barrier and make it flat all at once. It's much easier if you kind of do it line by line and then smooth it out in front of you. At the end, you'll have some leftover that you can trim off, but the floor helps smooth it out as well, step by step. First step is to take the first board and its entire length out of the package and put it up against that left corner that's the furthest away here in this picture. Then you take them out one by one until you hit the right side, and then you cut it so that it meets that 1/4 inch gap at the end, and then you use that leftover piece to start the next row, and so on and so on and so on.
Okay, first row's in and second row's almost done. I did use the last piece that I cut off from the first row to be able to start the second row. Just make sure they're not too short. The instructions on this particular board says not shorter than 8 inches, or they'll kind of be a little bit wonky when you put them together. Can't be too short or they won't stick together very well. A quick video on how to actually get these things in here. The bottom, or the lipstick cowl, is called the groove. The overlap is called the tongue. The groove always goes down on the bottom, so kind of think about it like got to get down to get your groove on, and then the tongue goes over top to kind of look it over. So once you get this first piece, put it in at an angle. Don't go too steep, don't go flat, just a little bit of an angle like this, about 15 degrees, and slide it into the bottom of the next piece, and then just slightly pushing to the last row, push it down, and that's kind of snapped in place. Now, after you get it down, you take the hammer, you put it into the first section of the previous board, tap it down kind of lightly, same thing along the edge. Always use a mallet, not a hammer. And then there's a tapping block. And the tapping block is just a normal 2x4. I use a 2x4. Now you can groove it so that it has the width or the thickness of the flooring, and then create another lip on this edge. But I find if you just put it along the side like this, and then just gently tap it until these seams go away. That's the easiest way to make sure you have a nice tight seal. There it goes. Between the last row and the new row. And you go down through it the entire way, making sure it's snug up against you, because you don't want to damage the groove on the next row, and it makes it harder to have the pieces fit in. But that's it. Pretty smooth, pretty easy. Then I take a smooth surface like this, and I give it a couple good whacks, making sure that there's pressure applied on it. You don't want it jumping around too much. Make sure it's nice and secure. Then you start on your next piece.
Once you get good at this, you're going to do about 2 to 2.5 rows per hour. It does take time to be able to cut what you need and make things finish the row nice and smooth, but you're probably going to get better than me and maybe do 3.5 to 4 an hour, but that's what it was for me, 2.5 to 3 rows an hour. Okay, the large space that didn't need any trimming from the width of the boards was done, but now we got into the more difficult area. On this particular floor, it ended up where we didn't end up with a gap that was small enough to be covered up with trim on the left side of the wall. You see kind of the vent there. That was fine because that's the new row, but there was too much of a gap, so we ended up having to cut a very, very thin piece of board to go between that last row there and the wall. And we're going to have a little video here that shows you how to cut these little small pieces to go around door insets and little tiny areas that you have to fill up.
Okay, so just a quick little lesson here about how you cut these final pieces. So we are here in a doorway. Got a little sliver of stuff. I've already cut this one, so just a tiny sliver. I don't know if you can see it, right? It can be a problem, but I put a little bit of glue down to make sure that it doesn't come up later, and the trim will cover it just nicely once we get done. Now, how to cut these things is you take the piece that you're going to use and you mark it. Now, how I do it, and there are different ways to do this, but I line it up exactly with this row here. You can see the little gap, right? Here. I use this board and I put it right over top where it's going to go, and I also line it up so that it's perfectly symmetrical over the next row. All right, that's close enough. Now I take a guider piece that's the same width, right? And I say, okay, well, I don't want to cover up this door jamb transition piece, and I know how far I need it to go. So see that line right there? The distance is marked here, and this distance is going to be the same as this distance. I'm just using this as a guide piece, right, to be able to mark the distance out. And then I just take a pencil and I mark it, and I mark it, and I mark it. Now here it gets a little fun, right? And you have to have a gap for expansion between the wall, but in principle it's the same thing, right? You measure it out, you draw it on a pencil, and hope your dog doesn't get in the way. But eventually you'll have a nice drawn line, and then you'll cut it and you'll be done. Okay, so that's it. The last piece just went in there. Again, use the old handy dandy crowbar with a little piece of, actually it was this piece, where is it, that piece there, as a wedge to be able to push the last piece and hammer it together. But we're all done, so we're gonna take the spacers out, trim up any of the leftover vapor barrier. Over there, you gotta just trim it with a box cutter knife, and then trim, which we'll show you how to cut in a bit.
Before we show you the trim, a couple notes here on the floor. Again, this project, that last row you can see is approximately only 1/3 the width of all the other planks, and the last row can really be a beast to try to get the tongue and the grooves together, because you can't put a 2x4 anywhere in there to smack things together. So you kind of have to just go very, very slow, use a wedge. I used a crowbar and a wedge to kind of slowly get the grooves to fall into place, and then just pound it on them with that rubber mallet to get them to be nice and tight. It will take time, but patience is a virtue, and you will get it done.
All right, we're coming up to the final steps here. So out comes the nail gun with, of course, the compressor. I've already pre-cut everything so that they line up nicely, or nice enough, in all the corners. So we'll secure all of these to the wall with some nails. And then when we're done with that, we'll go through and kind of caulk whatever uneven or gaps there might be. Add a quick little layer of touch-up white paint, and we will be done.
So a picture of the finished product. Again, about 2 weeks, all said and done. We do these projects as we have time to do them, although this one pretty much had my full-time attention, between 6 to 8 hours a day, from getting everything out of the room, getting everything stripped out of the room, wainscoting, wood cut, floor cut, everything in, and everything painted and all finalized. It did take me about 2 weeks to get this done, but had a little bit of help here and there, but mostly it was just myself. I was pretty happy with the way everything turned out. Total budget for this was about $1,400. When I got it quoted by one of those companies that came in to give me a quote on what it would take to do everything, it was between $8,000 to $10,000. So another lesson in how much you can save if you just learn and take the patience to do things yourself. And it's a great opportunity for your family to learn how to do this kind of work as well, and it's something that everybody can be proud on if they come in and help from time to time. So good luck, and happy DIYing.